What are you willing to sacrifice to be famous on the internet? Your dignity?
We gonna get that chicken nugget.
Your safety? Or what about your freedom?
I just want to apologize for what I've done, and
if the answer to these three questions is yes, then you might just be Johnny Somali, one of the most hated streamers in the world, who is now facing a maximum of 31 years in a South Korean prison. But how did it get this bad? Not much is known about the early life of Ramzi Khalid Ismail. Before he began his content creation journey, Johnny was attending Arizona State University. At least that's according to him. He's also claimed to be a real estate manager, a financial advisor, and even the owner of a vape company. As dubious as these claims are, they pale in comparison to his supposed ethnic background. He claims that he is half Ethiopian and half Somalian, and has claimed to be a former child soldier and Somali pirate, both of which are certainly untrue. What is known is that Johnny began uploading videos onto YouTube in October of 2022. Unfortunately, his original YouTube channel has been removed from the platform due to violations that we'll certainly delve into later, meaning that some of these videos in their entirety are lost to time. However, judging by the uploads present, Johnny seemed to be focused on vlog-style content, mainly showing off his experience at parties or clubs. After his first video, documenting a Halloween party in Arizona, Johnny had a handful of uploads in Bangkok, Thailand. These vlogs are not offensive by any means. If anything, they seem like innocent and earnest attempts at a career in content creation. Most of his videos only managed to get a few hundred views. However, he seemed to get lucky quite early, with a video titled "The Craziest Club in Bangkok" pulling in nearly 200,000 views in 4 months. Despite the spike in viewership, the content itself was nothing worth subscribing for, and he hardly saw any growth as a result. One viral video simply wasn't going to cut it for Johnny if he wanted to make a name for himself, and he needed to shake things up. This likely explains his decision to begin IRL streaming, something others like Neon, Jack Doherty, and FouseyTube were finding success in at the time.
What? Little prom, what you gonna do? What you gonna do, little prom? Yeah.
Of course, Johnny didn't just borrow their format. He also adopted their propensity to disturb the peace and farm clips, and he came up with the perfect environment to rain terror in. A country like Japan is a common destination for live streamers looking to spice up their content, with its beautiful cities, parks, restaurants, and general culture. However, most creators make it a priority to keep in mind the cultural expectations that come with visiting the land of the rising sun. One of those expectations is engaging in the strict social etiquette expected from Japan's citizens and its visitors, which emphasizes quiet, courteous, and polite behavior while in public. It's likely that these exact social staples are what drew Johnny Somali in, as they would exacerbate all of his public outbursts. And not only one day in, Johnny would make his presence in the country felt as he began harassing a Japanese citizen while riding the subway.
you know Hiroshima? You know Hiroshima? Nagasaki? You know. Why you do this? Pearl Harbor?
For no discernible reason, Johnny decided it was appropriate to interrogate a random stranger on why they did Pearl Harbor and brought up Hiroshima and Nagasaki, obviously in reference to when the United States dropped atomic bombs onto those cities.
Nagasaki, you know. You know Hiroshima, Nagasaki? We're gonna do again.
What?
Hiroshima, Nagasaki. We do again.
This is obviously ridiculous, not only because the man is clearly too young to have been alive or responsible for Pearl Harbor, but also because simply saying the names of two cities is not a clear slight or insult. Outside of the intent, it's just simply confusing. It's essentially the equivalent of walking up to an American and saying, New York City, Dallas, Texas, in the hopes of offending them somehow. This man, obviously confused about what was going on, and maybe even frightened by Johnny's aggressive diatribe, sat there trying to make sense of the situation. Luckily, a fellow American was also on the subway and decided to confront him.
You know. What?
What?
What do you mean?
Where are you from?
You know where I'm from?
Where are you from?
I'm from America.
You're from America?
Yes.
So am I.
Johnny, likely believing he was also Japanese due to him being Asian, began incoherently yelling the names Hiroshima and Nagasaki at him as well. Of course, this also came along with threats of doing Pearl Harbor to you again.
So am I.
You're from America?
Yeah, you're being obnoxious.
You know what we do to you?
What do you do?
We will do again.
Do what?
Hiroshima, Nagasaki. You understand?
Do you think I'm Japanese?
Where are you from?
I'm from America.
Where are you from? What's your name?
Texas, buddy.
Now, realizing that his insults make even less sense directed at a Korean guy, he begins reminding him of the Korean War.
Korean War. You know what happened to you?
Come on, you're
touch me.
Obnoxious, brother.
Don't touch me,
Leave
brother.
this guy alone.
Korean War, North Korean War, you know what we did to you.
This line in particular, "you know what we did to you," is extremely funny when you consider that this guy could potentially be and is most likely of South Korean heritage. During the Korean War, the United States allied themselves with South Korea and assisted them in maintaining their sovereignty after North Korea invaded them. Johnny clearly seems to believe the Korean War was fought between the United States and Korea, a country that has technically not existed since 1945. The two would argue for some time before Johnny reached his stop and got off the subway. Fortunately for him, the situation had not escalated any further than a brief confrontation. However, it seems that someone amongst his very small viewership decided to clip this interaction on the subway, and it eventually found its way to both Reddit and Twitter. The clip quickly picked up millions of views and infuriated almost everyone who saw it. Unsurprisingly, Japanese citizens became particularly enraged by what they saw, and one even took it upon themselves to confront Johnny directly.
No problem, it's no problem. Over to you. It's no problem. No. No, we good. Hey, we chill. So bye.
The man eventually gets off his bike and starts walking towards him, which causes a visibly frightened Johnny to begin backing up. After walking away for some time, the man approaches on his bike once again, although he was not nearly as hostile as he would have initially assumed, simply hoping to have a discussion about what had gone down.
Somebody give me money.
No.
Somebody give me money, and they said, say it.
No.
So I said it on the train.
You say it? Yeah.
Can somebody give me money?
Somebody?
You know, donation.
So who?
Somebody on YouTube and Twitch.
YouTube comment?
Yeah, YouTube comment, give me money.
When asked for a reason as to why he did what he did, he claimed he was told to do so by a donator, which seems to be a blatant lie. But even if someone did give him money, it's not like Johnny had to do what they said. He could have just ignored the donation. He has free will. At least I think he does. Shortly after, the police show up and question Johnny, although he received no real consequences at the time, other than a week-long ban from streaming on Kick, his primary platform of choice. Aside from that, if anything, he was positively reinforced by the situation, with a whole new set of eyes on his content waiting to see what he would do next. But as it turns out, Johnny wouldn't have to do anything to find his next viral moment. The day he returned to live streaming, Johnny made a promise to clean up his act moving forward. However, while making the promise, he was attacked on the street.
Let's be respectful, you know what I mean? I hope nobody in the chat was saying weird. If I go back and whoa.
Regardless of his stated intentions to respect the Japanese people, a large target remained on his back, and so there was no incentive for him to behave cordially either, considering that as long as he remained in Japan, he would also remain a prime target for confrontation. A few days later, a group of young men, led by the Japanese YouTubers Rengoku and Guts, vowed to find Johnny and scare him out of the country, and it wasn't long until they located the Airbnb he was staying at. What's more, likely in an attempt to get Johnny banned on Kick, Rengoku stripped completely naked in direct sight of Johnny's camera. Luckily for Johnny, an English and Japanese speaking translator was able to de-escalate the situation, and Johnny formally issued an apology.
Gomenasai, Japan. Gomenasai. I'm sorry.
Many in the chat, including Johnny's translator, seemed unconvinced that his apology was sincere.
You know, I am trying to learn. I told them sorry.
You were barely trying.
I told them sorry.
But regardless, Johnny did have a real chance to turn things around here. The Japanese YouTubers were willing to let sleeping dogs lie and just back off. But Johnny was starting to develop an addiction to an extremely powerful drug: attention. He had gotten a few viral clips on Twitter and Reddit, and while the attention was all negative, his audience was undoubtedly growing, even if all of the newcomers were just there to see whatever shenanigans he got into and encourage his bad behavior. Ultimately, this chance to turn things around would be squandered, as only a day later, Johnny would have the police called on him again for disturbing the peace on a subway.
We are going to police station.
Why? Why police station?
To hear your opinion on their
My
opinion.
passport's okay.
Apparently, one of the men present for the confrontation the night prior was following Johnny and called the police on him when he noticed him acting belligerent. Despite this, the police were kind and cordial with him, although their English was insufficient to effectively communicate. So they asked him to travel with them to the police station to meet an interpreter. This request greatly upset Johnny, who claimed to be a victim of racist persecution.
USA Embassy. I will go. This is racism.
Despite this supposed supposedly unfair treatment, the police officers here were both patient and kind, and even escorted him to a nearby taxi and allowed him to leave. This should have been Johnny's sign to leave the country and return home, as it was clear that nobody wanted him there. However, likely blinded by the prospects of capitalizing on his recent infamy, he chose to stay. Unsurprisingly, a long string of encounters with Japanese citizens would occur over the coming months. A short while after this fiasco, Johnny was once again attacked in the street.
Right now, hop in Discord. Oh, whoa, what the?
In only a few weeks, Johnny had managed to find himself not only as the most hated man in Japan, but also one of the most hated on the entire internet. Many were calling for his immediate deportation, while others were hoping for a potential jail sentence instead. Whether it be due to the immense backlash or the increasing hostility he was facing, Johnny seemed to believe that remaining in Japan was untenable for now. So he opted for a quick trip to Bali before returning, but not to Japan, but instead to Thailand. Despite his fears of unsavory consequences for his actions, Johnny had no intention of cleaning up his act. One of his main reasons for even visiting Thailand in the first place was to potentially come in contact with Ice Poseidon, the original IRL streamer, and as luck would have it, Johnny would find the perfect opportunity to introduce himself. In late June of 2023, Ice Poseidon was enjoying dinner with his girlfriend at a restaurant in Thailand. A fellow streamer, not with his group, eventually approached the table and began having a discussion, before stripping down his clothes to reveal a set of women's lingerie. One of the staff graciously asked the man to put his clothes back on, which he did listen to. However, Ice decided to remove his clothes shortly after and put the underwear on himself. Ice then proceeded to comedically give his girlfriend a lap dance, while his friend kept their private dining room door locked. If you did something like this in the United States, you would probably be kicked out of the restaurant in the worst case scenario. However, in Thailand, they handled disturbances like this very differently. The general manager, along with a handful of security guards, burst through the doors and confronted the group immediately.
And I would like all of you to go to the police station now. If you are doing something like this, it's unrespectful for Thai culture.
No, we're not doing any of that.
We don't do it.
No, it's not like that. We're not.
I see the photo, and all of them have CCTV.
With the police on their way, the manager continued to scold the group for their behavior. Meanwhile, Johnny Somali was streaming nearby, and his chat informed him of what was happening. So he made his way to the restaurant with the intention of saving Ice Poseidon.
I'm here as a lawyer. Listen, I have to save Chris.
Can you please turn off your live stream?
Oh no, it's not on. It's off.
It's not
It's
off.
live.
Please get out.
We have to save. I'm here. I'm the lawyer.
Johnny quickly made his way out, and Ice and his friends were taken to the police station a short while after. Of course, he wasn't done stirring the pot from there. He decided that he should visit the police station in the hopes of protesting the arrest, although the police standing by refused his request to meet up with the group, and he was eventually told to leave. The issue with Ice and his trip to Thailand would linger for some time, with him spending a few months in jail before finally being allowed to leave. However, for Johnny, the moment had ended as soon as it started, and oddly enough, it was probably the least severe moment of his career thus far. But I'm sure you can guess that he would be back to wreaking havoc in his current stomping grounds. While Ice was still in police custody, Johnny was informed by his chat that a previous collaborator of Ice Poseidon, Burger Planet, also affectionately known as Burger Andy, was nearby eating dinner outside. So he decided to provoke him.
Get the out of here.
This interaction seemingly wasn't enough for Johnny, and a few days later, he would confront Burger Planet once again. Johnny was made aware that he, as well as infamous live streamer Sam Pepper, were hanging out at a nearby restaurant. With the intention of potentially farming a few extra clips, Johnny certainly got a lot more than he expected.
Come on, bro. There's a beautiful gift for you guys.
Get out of here. Leave
Hey,
us
man,
alone.
Shout
We
out
don't want
Eddie,
it to
dog.
be
Shout out Eddie.
Clips like these really go to show just how despised someone like Johnny Somali had already become. Burger Andy and Sam Pepper are by no means well liked within the live streaming sphere. In fact, they're probably some of the most disliked people you can find in the entire community. And yet, nearly everyone was on their side for this interaction. Regardless of how much of a nuisance Johnny was being, it was unbelievably satisfying for viewers to see him humbled in a manner like this. But by that same token, Johnny was giving people exactly what they wanted. It didn't really matter who came out of each situation as the winner or the loser. All that truly mattered was how many eyes he could attract to his platform. But just because Johnny was finding success stream sniping other creators didn't mean his encounters with strangers were over, with an English-speaking man who was married to a Japanese woman directly confronting him for his behavior.
You go there insulting people like that. You know how many people died from Hiroshima joking about that?
I know.
So why are you joking about the people?
I was drunk.
I was drunk. I know how many families suffered, people suffered because of that. You're on the train harassing people like that? I was drunk.
In my research, I've never heard Johnny defend his outburst on the subway as a byproduct of being drunk, so I'm pretty sure this is a lie he made up on the spot in fear of getting beat up. Johnny would be recognized again while walking through the streets in Thailand, this time by a young couple having drinks. While the man just verbally berated him, the woman got a little more physical.
Whoa! Whoa!
This girl, who was almost certainly drunk during this encounter, likely didn't realize that her outburst only benefited Johnny in the long run. The same can't be said for his next encounter. A short while later, Johnny would be recognized by another English-speaking man while roaming the streets, who wouldn't show nearly as much restraint as his last two encounters.
No.
Clearly, Johnny's attempts to dodge confrontation by fleeing Japan did very little in solving the issue, so he figured he might as well return to where it all started. If he was going to get perpetually beat up and screamed at regardless of where he went, he may as well do it in a place where he can farm as many clips as possible. While in Thailand, he claimed that he intended on returning to Japan in the hopes of apologizing to its people.
I'm going back to Japan soon, so I can make a proper apology to the Japanese people.
But it doesn't seem like Johnny had any intentions on following through with this promise. Unless, of course, he felt as though twerking in the middle of a subway the second he arrived in the country was a proper way to apologize. Johnny's second trip to Japan would somehow manage to be even more chaotic than the first, now accompanied by a fellow streamer named Gino, who would only serve to bounce off of Johnny and make his antics so much worse. And let me tell you guys, this Gino fella is a real scholar, a true intellectual.
I would wake up and I would check my underwear and it would be like, bro, it was just all in my underwear, bro. Like, it was just gooey, crusty. It was a mixture of gooey, crusty. Like, when I would wake up in the morning, it's just gooey, crusty, all in my boxers.
With a new partner in crime, Johnny was reinvigorated to get back out there and start ruffling some feathers, which he quickly got to work on.
I'll beat you! I'll beat you!
A notable moment early in their second trip came when Johnny, along with Gino, decided to stop by a McDonald's at 1 a.m. Very early into entering the store, Johnny is extremely rude and makes a racist remark about the Japanese language.
What does this say? Yo, this in Mulan language. What does it say? This is in Mulan language. What does it say?
While ordering his food, Johnny is unnecessarily loud and verbally aggressive to the woman taking his order. However, things get worse when a different employee brings them their food, but requests them to not point the camera at him. Of course, Johnny immediately points the camera towards the employee, causing them to walk away with their food and promptly call the police.
Give me the food.
I'm getting you on camera, bro. Just give me the food. Bro, just
we already paid for the food. Just give us the food.
Whoa!
Johnny and his friend decide that it's appropriate to start yelling and screaming belligerently before charging back into the store and demanding their food. Likely getting sick of their incessant nagging, the employee caved and handed them their order. However, as they began walking out of the store, a man on a bike confronted him. Johnny clearly shows a disregard for anyone who isn't himself, prioritizing any viral moment or snappy headline to potentially get him a few extra subscribers. This is best exemplified when he encountered a Japanese Twitch streamer named Meowko.
You live right now? What you live on? What you live on?
I am live on Twitch.
Twitch?
Yeah.
I'm on. How many viewers you got?
I have like 2,000.
2,000?
Yes.
I got 1,300. Why you blocking her? Why you blocking her? Oh my god, you got my name right here. You doxing me? What's up, dog? Where you from?
Meowko, likely unaware of who Johnny was at first, had no problem pointing the camera at him while engaging in conversation. The issue here is that Johnny is banned on Twitch. And for those of you in the audience who are unaware, Twitch has a very archaic rule where Twitch streamers are not allowed to feature banned streamers on their platform, not even on accident, meaning that Johnny was directly putting Meowko at risk for a ban. While not realizing it at first, she quickly changes her demeanor when her chat informs her of who she's actually talking to.
What's up? How you doing? Yeah, I'm Johnny Somali. Somali. Yeah, Johnny Somali.
Wait,
I'm your friend. I'm Johnny Somali. I'm the most famous in Japan. What's up? Who are you?
Johnny directly tells her to get banned as she walks away, implying that he knew what he was doing all along and was maliciously trying to get her stream shut down.
Get banned, bitch.
Later on Meowko's stream, the young woman is seen visibly upset with tears in her eyes. On Twitter, Meowko revealed she had spoken with Twitch and managed to avoid a ban, and explains why she was so upset in the clip. "I hope he leaves Japan soon. I felt helpless that I couldn't do anything even though he was right in front of me. Thank you everyone for your concern." Although that's not to say the interaction didn't affect her, with her claiming on stream that the interaction nearly gave her a panic attack. With the news that Johnny Somali was back and terrorizing anyone he could, it's no surprise that the local citizens and visitors alike became far more aggressive towards Johnny.
All you have to say don't grab nothing. Oh.
With 2 clean punches, both Johnny and Gino were knocked out cold. As they regained consciousness and picked up their cameras, it's clear to see that Johnny's mouth was visibly bloody from the encounter. For most people, getting punched in the face multiple times in public would be a big wake-up call. A moment of clarity, to realize that the path you're on is the wrong one. Whether it be because you want to do the right thing and stop being a nuisance to everyone around you, or because you just want to keep all of the teeth in your mouth, it's the time to quit. But this did not deter Johnny by any means. One of the main reasons for this, aside from the increased viewership, is the lack of legal repercussions. Despite Japan having strict social principles, these don't necessarily translate to any form of law that could put him in jail or get him deported. But Johnny would eventually fly too close to the sun and get himself put in handcuffs. In late September of 2023, he found himself next to an active construction zone and decided to enter the job site without permission.
Oh, he's going into the warehouse? Nah, this is wild. I'm just a cameraman right here. I'm just a cameraman. I don't know what the is going on right now.
Even Gino, who has no problem with egging Johnny on in other situations, verbally expressed discomfort here, giving himself an alibi for a potential arrest by saying, "I'm just a cameraman." Johnny continues to make his way through the construction zone with a skeleton mask covering his face, and eventually one of the workers stands up to him.
Oh, he's mad.
Johnny then begins exclaiming Fukushima, referencing the nuclear meltdown that occurred in 2011, which displaced over 150,000 people from their homes. This not only rescinds all of his previous apologies, but it also shows him actively doubling down on his obnoxious behavior. Johnny was able to escape repercussions for a few hours, but eventually the police tracked him down and arrested him outside of a 7-Eleven.
Call the embassy. Call the embassy.
Gino was not on the scene at the time of his arrest and reacted to the news from his hotel room.
Gino, they're gonna get you as an accomplice? You think so? What do you mean they're looking for me? I'm in my hotel right now, bro.
Gino seemed to believe that he was safe from being arrested, and he decided to step outside of his room after waiting a few hours. What he didn't realize, however, was that the police were outside waiting for him. Gino eventually shut off his live stream, and he was taken to the police station a short time later. Although, as it turns out, his arrest had seemingly nothing to do with him trespassing in the construction zone. Rather, it was the result of him blasting loud text-to-speech donations while in a restaurant.
Chinese virus. Huawei.
China number one.
We wouldn't hear much from Johnny or Gino for the next 2 months, as they were too preoccupied with court hearings to find time to harass more innocent people. But in late November of 2023, Gino would make a surprise appearance on his Kick channel to explain what had been going on since their disappearance. Gino explained that he had personally managed to dodge any legal repercussions. However, Johnny was charged for the public disturbance at the restaurant and was facing a potential sentence of 6 months in prison. In court, Johnny vowed to stop live streaming and return to America, where he would supposedly resume his studies. Ultimately, he was released from custody in January 2024 and given a fine of 200,000 yen, a little under 1,400 United States dollars. You may be confused as to why he would get off so easily. Well, it likely has something to do with the fact that he lied to the judge about numerous things.
The prosecutor asked me, "You earn money from advertisers in your videos online, right?" I said, "No."
I said no.
"But you do earn money, right?" "No."
Of course, if he was willing to lie about his income, he probably also lied about his intentions to stop streaming and get a real job, which turned out to be the case. Johnny was fully committed to continuing his campaign, but Japan was off the table for obvious reasons, including the fact that he was banned from the country until 2029. So he needed to find a new country that would provide him a bounty of opportunities to disturb the peace. And he decided that there was no better place to go than Israel. I'm sure many of you are somewhat familiar with the situation happening right now between Israel and in Palestine. And with the recent events on October 7th, the issue is still fresh in the minds of millions of people around the world. It was in March of 2024 when Johnny booked his flights and set off to Israel, while the fallout from the attacks was still very fresh. This in and of itself was a bad sign. But when you also consider that Israel has a large population of both Jews and Arabs, the potential for Johnny to bring up sensitive issues is super high. Only a few days after arriving, Johnny was quickly making his impact felt, and he found himself getting jumped almost immediately.
Hey, yo, what was the problem earlier? What was the problem earlier?
Luckily for him, getting punched in the face was the worst thing he had to deal with. Meanwhile, the man who attacked him was put in handcuffs. While being arrested, Johnny approached him and began taunting him and calling him a monkey.
Go to jail, monkey! Monkey! You monkey! Go to jail, you monkey!
This outburst greatly upset one of the man's friends, who began pressing Johnny and threatening him, although he was held back and the situation did not escalate. That is, until Johnny began walking away, and a few more of his friends ran up on him and assaulted him.
Oh! Hey. Yo, where you running up on me? Yo!
But as we know by now, a few bumps and bruises have never dissuaded Johnny Somali from his typical antics. If anything, they seem to embolden him, and his next stunt was about as on the nose as he had ever been. Johnny made his way to the Western Wall, or the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, which is considered a sacred place for Jews to visit and say prayers. A common practice when visiting the wall is placing small notes containing prayers within the cracks. However, instead of bringing notes, he brought images of what he described as his favorite Jews.
Aiden, this is you. Epstein, you'll always be one of us. We love you. You're our King Jew. You're one of us. It doesn't matter what you did. You're still Jewish. You're still one of us. Fire one is Harvey Weinstein. I love you so much. You're one of my favorite top Jews. I love you.
Of course, an act like this would not be met without consequence, and he was quickly apprehended by police on the scene. While he wasn't thrown in a jail cell, he didn't walk away unscathed, receiving a permanent ban from Kick. Now, Johnny had nowhere left to turn but Rumble, as he was banned on every other social media platform imaginable. But as the old saying goes, the most dangerous creation of any society is a man who has nothing to lose. Johnny wouldn't choose to tread carefully moving forward, as there was no incentive to do so. In fact, what came next was arguably the most outrageous thing he's done yet. On April 8th, a massive protest was taking place in Tel Aviv. Despite the sensitive nature of the situation, Johnny Somali began drawing a bunch of unnecessary attention to himself, so much so that one female Israeli police officer began to confront him. However, she had no interest in arresting him and eventually walked away. That's when Johnny said this.
Don't touch me. I'm from America. Don't touch me. I'm from America. Don't touch me. I'll slap that ass. I'll grab it too. Donald Trump told me grab it by the I'll grab that too. Stop playing with me. I'll grab you. I'll grab it by the right here, nigga. I don't give a I don't give a I'm a different type of journalist.
He continued to harass the woman as well as other police officers at the scene, leading to him being detained by a male officer.
I'm from America. I'm from America, USA!
I find it hilarious that Johnny repeats, "I'm an American," to the officer arresting him, as if that information would change his decision to put him in handcuffs. Even more hilarious is this image of Johnny being carried away like a child having a temper tantrum. Unfortunately, however, they didn't officially arrest him or take him to jail. They simply removed him from the scene and allowed him to leave freely. However, the police did continue to investigate him, approaching him once the following day and again in the dead of night. It was during this encounter that Johnny claims he was beaten by the police, which is a blatant lie.
The police beat me. Huh? The police beat me tonight.
What? It's also worth noting that apparently Johnny had witnessed a shooting at the restaurant he was at the same night of the protest.
Bro, I'm eating dinner right now with Demir. Somebody just came in the restaurant, started shooting everybody, killing everybody, bro.
You would think something like this would inspire him to want to leave the country as quickly as possible, but for some reason, he didn't. In fact, he was directly violating his visa in Israel by staying after it had expired. He was initially not permitted to leave on time due to a blockade on Israeli airspace. However, once it was lifted, he remained in the country. This is likely the reason why the police barged into his hotel room at 4 a.m. and removed him. Now on the streets, Johnny began ideating on his next potential destination, initially proposing the idea of going to China.
It's not Chinese New Year's, but I'm bringing the fireworks, man. It's gonna be crazy. I'm going to China and I'm about to crash out.
Although it seems he changed his mind about this, likely due to the fact that he would probably be arrested and disappeared in record time if he behaved this way in that country. So he opted to stay in Israel and to continue overstaying his visit on an expired visa. Of course, he made sure to provoke as many people as he could, like a drunk Russian man he found on the street.
Slava Rossi! Slava Rossi! Slava Rossi! I'm warning him. I'm gonna kick him in his head. I'm warning. I'm gonna kick. Oh, ouch! Oh shit, hey. Relax, relax.
He was also confronted by the same guys that beat him up on his first night in the country.
Why you snitching, police?
I don't snitch nobody. I don't snitch nobody. You snitch, motherfucker. Oh, peace and love. Back up.
And was choked out while begging for mercy. But eventually, Johnny's time in Israel had come to an end. He got an emergency passport at the US Embassy and flew back home to America. From what I can tell, it seems like Johnny wasn't very active for some time. Maybe he needed to mentally decompress from the perpetual turmoil he had found himself in over the past year. But eventually, whatever money he managed to save up from his streaming days began to run out, and he needed to find a new lucrative way to make money. Rent was due, and he felt there was no better place to farm clips next than in South Korea. On September 27th, 2024, Johnny Somali touched down in the country, but this time was supposed to be different. He had previously begged Kick CEO Eddie Craven for forgiveness, promising that he learned the error of his ways.
Eddie, I learned my lesson from the Japan situation. I'm really sorry for anything that I've done to bring negative attention to Kick. I know I go viral a lot. It's not always for the best things, but Eddie, I promise you, I'm trying to reform. I'm trying to change.
While this request for a second chance seemed to have fallen on deaf ears, it does appear Johnny was making a real effort to get his act together. He was calling himself a reformed streamer, privated his old videos on his YouTube channel, and was even filtering out text-to-speech donations to avoid inappropriate outbursts. However, the allure of farming clips was too much for him to resist, and on his first day there, he already began harassing anyone he could. His first notable transgression came when he jumped on stage in the middle of a music performance.
Whoa! Whoa! Very nice! Whoa! Amazing! Whoa! Whoa! Jumped on the stage. Down? Down? Oh, shit. Got on TV? I might have been on TV.
Despite this blatant disrespect, Johnny was still committing to the bit of recently reformed streamer. A short time after trespassing, he sat next to a statue of a woman and made an official statement on his behavior in Japan.
I stand with the Korean people. I love Korea. And everything that I did in Japan was for the Korean and the Chinese people.
This entire diatribe is already passive-aggressive enough, but the nature of his behavior in this video is much more sinister than you might think at first glance. You see, the statue that he sits next to and eventually kisses on the cheek is called the Comfort Woman statue. It pays tribute to the over 200,000 women and girls who were trafficked into Japanese military brothels during the Second World War. It serves as not only a reminder of what took place, but also as a protest to the Japanese government and their refusal to take accountability for the tragedy. It goes without saying that treating a monument of this nature as a prop for a passive-aggressive apology would not be received well by basically anyone. Even though Johnny was making a promise to respect the Korean people during his visit, he seemed to have no problem belittling their criticisms of him in the wake of the clip going viral.
I saw that the Koreans were getting mad about that Comfort Woman statue, so I'm like, we might as well make this matter. I think the main Comfort Woman statue is in front of the Japanese embassy, so that is where I'm going right now.
Even knowing full well what the statue represented, he had no issue continuing to defile the sacred monument. Johnny then made his way to the Japanese embassy, making sure to harass as many people as he could before arriving.
Sir, is this legal what you're doing? Is this legal? Is this legal what you're doing? Are you on a tourist visa?
No, I'm not.
What visa are you on? Are you on a tourist visa? I'm checking. You cannot make money in tourist visa.
Once he arrived at the embassy, Johnny figured he might as well kill two birds with one stone and try to get unbanned from Japan. But unfortunately, the embassy was closed for a holiday. It seems that Johnny's intentions to visit the statue located at the embassy had faded from his mind, as he became preoccupied with dancing in the street in a traditional Korean dress and, of course, being confronted by angry strangers.
Let's not bother her.
Who the f I bother? Are you a target? Don't you? I can call the police on you. You put a hand on me. I have it on video. Don't touch me.
What's your name?
My last warning. My last warning.
He continued to wander the streets for the next few days, eventually stumbling upon a young woman standing alone on the sidewalk, just waiting to be harassed.
What are you scared for? Relax, yo. Why are you putting the phone up like this? Why are you scared like this? Whoa!
He decided to follow the woman into the store and continue to harass her until a man stepped in to intervene. Johnny was becoming more reckless, unruly, and belligerent by the day, seemingly begging to be arrested, confronted, or attacked, in the hopes of capturing his next viral moment. In this clip, an extremely intoxicated Johnny Somali begins spilling food and alcohol all over the floor, while blasting loud text-to-speech donations with no regard for anyone else around him. Unsurprisingly, one of the employees confronted him and eventually eventually called the police. Luckily for Johnny, it seems he managed to flee the scene before the cops arrived. But something was missing from his content. There was a palpable lack of public transport harassment, which he quickly made sure to correct. Johnny, on a public bus, began blasting loud music and insulting fellow passengers, sparking a massive confrontation. Of course, despite numerous people surrounding him and asking him to stop, he continued to play loud music and act like a nuisance. Obviously fed up with his behavior, one of the passengers called the cops, and Johnny quickly made his escape before he could be caught. Unfortunately for him, the police were able to track him down, and he was then placed in handcuffs and arrested. But Johnny wouldn't spend long at the police station, being allowed to leave about 4 hours after being arrested. Johnny was officially spooked, and he was desperate to not find himself in a similar situation as he did in Japan.
But the problem is the subway police know me. Now the upground police know me. Let's just leave all these. I'm ready to get out of here. I'm gonna get a ticket to Thailand probably tomorrow, if not the next 2 days.
Despite claiming that he intended to flee to Thailand, he did no such thing. Instead, he decided it was better to continue provoking the Korean people, specifically returning to the Comfort Woman statue outside of the Japanese embassy and making abhorrent gestures to it.
I brought the baby oil to this. I brought the baby oil. I was about to P. Diddy her. But they said it's locked up, bro. They got this locked up in security, bro.
Now incapable of accessing the statue or the Japanese embassy, Johnny decided to find a different Comfort Woman statue and make a complete fool of himself. He begins groping and kissing it, removing his clothes, and begins rubbing himself with baby oil, all while blasting loud music and grinding on it. He is unsurprisingly confronted about this, with one woman very gently explaining to him the statue's significance, which he pretends to be ignorant of. As bad as this situation was, it was about to get a whole lot worse, as Johnny's partner in crime, Gino, was making his way to Korea. Gino made sure to make his mark on Korea felt almost immediately, with him provoking a woman into physically assaulting him, and his presence only encouraged Johnny to continue to act out.
Hiroshima, Nagasaki was a good thing.
Johnny's carelessness was at an all-time high, as he decided to once again blast loud text-to-speech donations through a speaker on a public bus, despite being arrested only days earlier for the exact same thing, and much like the last time, he was confronted by the cops.
I'm chill, calm down.
Johnny was able to avoid legal repercussions, but they wouldn't last for long. For the rest of October, Johnny found himself doing what made him famous, getting yelled at by strangers, confronted by police, and occasionally punched. It seems like every stream involved the police questioning Johnny after causing a scene or being a nuisance. This had become such a frequent occurrence that he was now on the cops' radar, and they were directly investigating a plethora of crimes he committed.
We saw your video.
I don't do no crime. No crime.
You ever been visit the Itaewon, right?
No crime.
There, right?
I don't do no crime.
And then you touch the...
I don't do no crime.
As if it couldn't get any worse for him, after the police left, a random passerby sucker punched him when he wasn't looking.
Go to Johnny's stream, we're gonna have a good time.
Johnny, despite having a clear disregard for the law himself, was deeply offended by this attack and decided to go file a police report. But the attacks wouldn't stop there. In fact, they would only escalate. A few days later, he would get jumped and chased down the street. The following day, another Korean live streamer attempted to stream snipe Johnny in the hopes of attacking him.
Johnny 어딨어?
A few days after this, Johnny was confronted by yet another Korean YouTuber who nearly knocked him unconscious.
어디가? 어디가? What you mean? 어디가? 어디가? What is 어디가? Oh!
It appears that both men were arrested and taken into custody, but released a short while later. You may be wondering what exactly is going on. Previous physical attacks against Johnny seem to happen in a spur of the moment, but these encounters seem much more premeditated. Well, that's likely because a bounty was placed on Johnny's head. Specifically, a 1 million won bounty was placed for anyone able to knock Johnny Somali out cold, and tons of YouTubers were trying to claim the prize. As if staying in a country full of people who want to kill you isn't bad enough, things got even worse for Johnny when an arrest warrant was placed for both him and his bodyguard's arrest. The charges included obstruction of business and violations of the Minor Crimes Act. However, Johnny had also committed a crime that doesn't even exist in America. For whatever reason, Johnny decided to create AI-generated videos of him making out with a female Korean streamer. South Korean law states that the creation, distribution, or possession of non-consensual AI-generated explicit content is classified as a sexual crime. Legal experts have confirmed that this offense carries a mandatory mandatory prison sentence of up to 7 years. This means that Johnny was also facing charges of sexual harassment. Seemingly with no hope of escaping, it seems that Johnny and his bodyguard turned themselves in. A few days later, on the 8th of November, Johnny made a public statement on Korean television.
So to all the people of South Korea, I just want to apologize for what I've done, and I really did not mean to hurt your guys' pride this much. You guys are a good people. You guys are a great people.
Despite trying to appear deeply apologetic, he hardly meant a word he said in this press conference. Johnny was eventually indicted, specifically for the clip of him at the convenience store, where he carelessly spilled food and drink while severely intoxicated. This meant that he was banned from leaving the country while he awaited a verdict. On the bright side, at least for him, he was permitted to leave police custody while the process continued. While he tried to convince the South Korean people that he was done with his days of trolling and harassment, he quickly changed his mind the second he got a fresh taste of freedom.
These motherfuckers are saying I'm getting 29 years. Y'all not gonna catch me alive. Dennis Rodman? I'm the next Dennis Rodman. Oh.
Seemingly with nothing else to lose, Johnny became more reckless than ever, persistently posting to his Instagram and TikTok accounts, egging on local prosecutors, his detractors, and the Korean people. This was really the only content we would get from Johnny for the next few months, and he would be almost completely radio silent in January and February of 2025. The only notable moment during this time period would come on the 17th of February, where Johnny would post a new video wearing a suit, a blonde wig, and a Make America Great Again cap.
I am part of the criminal nuisance live streamer gang called CX. We are ran by our top leader, Ice Poseidon. He's the leader of CX, and Miskiff, the leader of OTK. We are part of a live streaming international criminal mafia.
Johnny comedically shifts all of the blame to Ice Poseidon, claiming that he is the leader of their group and the main reason he even went to Japan in the first place. He also ends the video with him ripping up a printed out picture of the rising sun. However, Johnny would officially make his return to streaming on the 7th of March, with the intention of streaming his trial.
And I will be live streaming the trial. I will be live streaming before, during, and after. It's time for a redemption arc, a Johnny Somali redemption arc. I'm gonna try to become a better man.
However, it seems that he showed up late and drunk, and it was postponed. This story is corroborated by the commentary YouTuber Atozi, who was actually in person for his trial.
And of course he walked in with a MAGA hat on. Immediately, he got in trouble for wearing the hat. He took off the hat, and then he put it back on again and got in trouble for it again. On top of that, he was also carrying a massive water bottle. That's not allowed in court either. He got in trouble for that, and the reason he had that water bottle was presumably because he decided to go live last night at 3 in the morning, and he drank a bunch on a stream, so he was too drunk to make it to court on time. So that water bottle was most likely to sober himself up, because he showed up to court more than an hour late. Then, you know, he had a massive smile on his face until the judge started reading all of his charges. So the people who witnessed this, they're believing that he's looking at about 3 to 5 years in prison at least for all of this.
As mentally destroyed as Johnny had to have been in the beginning of this story, his mental state was plummeting to unthinkable lows. A few weeks after his trial was postponed, he was seen streaming, almost completely naked and drunk, screaming in the street.
Korea #1! Call the police!
He then began walking through the city, still drunk and in his underwear, until he was stopped by a cop, arrested, and taken to the station. But he didn't seem to care in the slightest, with him sharing this epic selfie of him flexing to his Discord server. Ultimately, since he was in the middle of a pending trial, the police just let him leave. Johnny had now found himself in an unbreakable cycle, stuck in South Korea with no chance to leave, and his entire future potentially ruined. He simply did not care anymore. He initially had something to lose, and thus operated with some level of caution, but now there were no more rules left to play by. Shortly after leaving the police station, a still intoxicated Johnny begins live streaming himself in a store with loud text-to-speech donations blaring through his speakers. One of the donations plays a silly German song, and Johnny decides to send his heart out to the audience, so to speak, and throw out a Roman salute. Only a few days later, Johnny was back at it. While shopping at a grocery store, obviously blackout drunk, he stripped down to his underwear once again and began screaming and twerking.
Shout out Asian! Yeah! Oh yeah! Oh yeah! Oh yeah!
It also appears that in the process of shaking his butt on camera, he's promoting something called Somali coin. It's honestly hard to tell. I'm not even sure if he's speaking English at this point.
Get that Somali coin, send that phone shot, nigga, we live.
Clearly, Johnny has intellectually ascended to such a high level that my tiny pea brain cannot fathom anything he's saying. Fortunately, Johnny managed to sober up the next day and was able to experience getting punched in the face while completely conscious.
W stream, are you guys enjoying the stream today? Whoa!
I guess this interaction reminded him just how persecuted he was, and so he began protesting the South Korean president and his mistreatment.
They're trying to put me in court. They're trying to impeach the president. They're trying to put me in jail. They're trying to put President Yoon in jail.
As hopeless as it seems for this guy at this point, things were actually looking up. A lifeline was on the horizon, in the form of Ice Poseidon. Since Ice was one of the most popular kick streamers with direct ties to the CEO, he felt as though maybe he could do him a solid. So he decided to stream snipe Ice the second he got off his plane.
You guys do the same stuff as me.
Japan
What's
years
up?
ago and I was fine. You came to Japan, did your thing.
So I'm the catalyst of it.
Japan anymore.
But listen,
That's your fault.
you've done the same stuff as me, a lot of it.
If you didn't catch that, Ice notes that streaming in Japan was never an issue a few years ago, but his most recent trip was nearly impossible. Johnny Somali has had a particular impact that has really been demonstrated in this video, that being the hyper-awareness Japanese citizens have had towards live streamers. Ice found himself constantly dealing with police and random citizens while he wasn't even breaking any laws.
And unfortunately, even though you have already bought this ferry ticket, you cannot get on this ferry today.
So I'm sure you can understand why he had no desire to help Johnny after making his job exponentially harder and very deeply tainting the reputation of normal people harmlessly live streaming their lives.
But I honestly don't think I'm a bad person. I want to stream on Kick again. I literally do. I want to change. I love streaming. I do. I'm serious. I do.
If that was true, then why do you say really?
Because I'm just trying to get content. I'm taking it too far. I take the content too far. The trolling too far. I do. I admit it. I admit it. I admit it. I admit it. But I admit when I'm wrong, though.
How do you expect to get unbanned on a platform if you take it too far?
But you have to learn from your mistakes. I'm a man to know when I'm wrong.
Johnny is giving the same song and dance as he did with South Korean TV and in his initial plea to kick. It would be extremely unwise to take his word on this promise, especially considering that there is no appeal to his content outside of the outrageous moments. It's not like Johnny has built his career off of high-quality videos or his likable personality. People only watch him in the same way they might watch a dumpster fire or a car crash. What's more is that Johnny hasn't just created a stigma, he has created an entirely new blueprint for other clout-hungry streamers to build their own careers from. One of these individuals, named Black Ass Dave, has a propensity for harassing local citizens in Japan and South Korea.
Oh, burger. Yo, don't touch me, bro. You don't touch me. Bro, if that's a girl, I want her. Is that a girl? Hello? Are you a girl? Oh, nah, I want you. What's up, baby? You got a fat old ass.
Another streamer by the name of Sigma Boy frequently films himself running through the streets of Shibuya or in subways, blasting loud music on his speaker and being generally belligerent. Johnny has done so much more than just harass a few innocent people. He's done much more than strike fear and anxiety into the hearts of Japanese and South Korean citizens that he encounters. He has created a stigma that affects his fellow streamers and an effective business model to farm content. But Ice Poseidon didn't buy his shtick, and Johnny was once again left with nothing but a live stream chat full of people that wanted to watch him burn. Looking for whatever good favor he could, Johnny decided to visit another comfort woman statue, where he once again offered his apologies. I'm sure it's not surprising that the apology was just as half-hearted as all the others. If he really felt sorry, he wouldn't allow the issue to linger as much as he does. In reality, he knows that any interaction with a comfort woman statue will bring him some form of engagement on his channel. When his apology tour didn't really work out, he decided he may as well go back to doing what he does best, that being having public meltdowns and harassing as many people as possible. It really didn't matter to him at this point. His life was basically over, so what's the harm in committing the same crime a few more times? He's really not even trying anymore, and it's hard to say that what he's doing is worthy of being called content. When he was initially disrupting strangers on the subway or blasting TTS donations, at least there was something to keep your attention. But now, it seems he has no desire to be even remotely interesting and just wants to streamline the process of confrontation as quickly as possible. You may be wondering why the police don't just keep him in a cell until his trial is complete, and to be honest, I can't tell you why. The leading theory is that they're potentially just allowing him to continue to rack backup charges to contribute to their mountain of evidence, which would ensure his conviction. If Johnny just laid low after his arrest and stayed out of trouble, he would probably have a much better chance of getting off scot-free. But Johnny seems to not care about this at all, even going as far as to directly provoke the police by knowingly engaging in illegal activity. Recently, while on a live stream, Johnny showed a brand new deepfake video he created.
Don't ever show that.
This seemed to be Johnny's gravest mistake yet. His belligerent threats and provocative statements paled in comparison to directly fanning the flames of an ongoing trial, and it netted him a secondary sex offense charge. That means his 2 obstruction of business charges, which come with a 5-year sentence each, as well as 2 sex offense charges, totaling a combined 21 years in prison, meaning that Johnny is currently facing over 30 years behind bars. Of course, as things only get worse and worse, Johnny has less incentive to parse his words or bite his tongue, in the hopes of sparing himself further consequences. For example, Johnny has publicly threatened that if he were to hypothetically be infected with HIV or AIDS, he would become a super spreader, meaning that he would be, in essence, a biological terrorist and attempt to infect as many unsuspecting victims with the disease as possible.
If I ever caught HIV, I would become a super spreader. I'll say it right now. I don't care.
Things like this not only add more potential charges to his eventual sentencing, but they only embolden the courts to believe that he's incapable of change and undeserving of forgiveness. It also doesn't help that he actively chose to threaten the judge presiding over the case and their family while on his live stream.
The judge, the prosecutor, y'all can suck my ass. Yeah. Suck my on soft. Causing anxiety by carrying a fish. Tell the judge you can suck my dick. I'll bring a fish to your mother's house. I don't care.
His most recent appearance in court took place in May of 2025, where Johnny pled guilty to all of his charges, except the charges relating to the deepfaked videos. This is likely because the bulk of his potential sentencing comes from those crimes, and if they go away, he could potentially shave 21 years off his sentence. But somehow, even with 1 foot basically in a jail cell at this point, Johnny Somali still can't help himself. Take, for example, the female streamer that he made the AI videos of. He's actively tried to intimidate her into silence by implying that some kind of legal repercussion may be in her future if she continues to push the issue in court.
Guess who's getting charged too? Like, I can drop really knowledge on you, bro. That stupid Bong Bong. She showed that image as well on her stream, right? So guess who went to the police station? I put charges on Bong Bong. Bong Bong getting charged too. Like, I'm not playing.
Obviously, it's ridiculous to think that she could be held legally accountable, considering that she didn't create the deepfaked images, and the only reason she had them in her possession was because Johnny publicly distributed them. For now, Johnny's story ends with a question mark, as the internet waits with bated breath to see when he'll be thrown in jail and for how long. Even if he were to plead guilty to all of his charges, there's no guarantee that he would be given the max sentence. There's a very real possibility that he'll not only be a free man sooner than we think, but also that his reign of terror is far from over. To this day, you can still find him streaming on a website called Party, whatever that is. He streams to a very small group of viewers, while his clips are re-uploaded to YouTube with exponentially more views. And as tragic as his situation is, it's almost impossible to feel sorry for this guy. Public opinion of him is so bad that YouTuber Donut Operator donated thousands of dollars to one of the people who punched Johnny to universal acclaim. And I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty based. Johnny Somali has found himself in a perpetual cycle that is impossible to break. There really is no outcome that will even benefit him. If he's locked in prison for the next 30 years, then his streaming career is basically dead on arrival. If he somehow manages to catch another break, he'll just continue on this path, sinking lower and lower until he's arrested yet again in some other country. If that's the case, then it's possible the story of Johnny Somali is only just getting started, especially if he can't get a handle on his newest addiction, gooning. It's even worse for your health than any substance you can think of, but thankfully, we at Turkey Tom Industries have developed a suitable cure for your ailment, the Stop Gooning Hat.
The Stop Gooning Hat is back on turkeytom.shop, the latest and greatest in anti-gooning technology. This hat will prevent you, your ex-wife, your parents, your children, and all of your friends from walking down, perhaps even gooning down a very, very dark path. Thanks to its impactful design. I recently started wearing this hat myself, and I immediately went from being a loser basement dweller who talks about weird people on the internet to, it's available for a limited time only, so get it right now before it's gone at turkeytom.shop. I repeat, turkeytom.shop.
And until next time, leave me alone.